Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's ScholarCast, Her Story, sponsored by GEICO. So we're really excited that you are here with us today. I know everybody's got a busy schedule, so it means a lot that you're able to join us for this really amazing event. We have an amazing group of panelists that will be joining us today. And I just want to give a few housekeeping rules before we get started. The event will be recorded and will be shared with you after the event. Usually takes about 24 hours before we get the recording. So you'll get a copy of that. We have muted and taken your camera offline for the event, but if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the Q&A. We most likely won't be able to get through all questions. They've got a full event planned. But if we can, we may be able to send those questions over to them post-event. All right, well, I think that is it. I'm really excited about today's event. I'm sure I will learn a bunch and a lot of information from our panelists. So I want to go ahead and get started and bring out our panelists now.
Hi, good
Welcome,
afternoon,
everyone.
everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Lisa Aquino. I am a managing attorney in the Downstate New York Staff Counsel Litigation Office with GEICO. And I've worked for GEICO for nearly 12 years, currently serving as the co-chair of the Women's ERG at GEICO called GROW. I'm very excited to be here to moderate this event for you all today. I'd like to quickly introduce you to our panelists before we get started. First, I'm going to pass it over to Taylor.
Hi, good morning / afternoon, everybody. I'm Taylor Davis. I am a senior director of physical damage at GEICO. Been here about 17 years, and my team manages the western half of the United States, west of the Mississippi. So we have lots of fun places that we are spread out across.
Okay, and now over to Karen.
Good morning / afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen DeMars, and I also am a senior director in the physical damage side of our business. And I have been with GEICO for nearly 40 years. December, I'll celebrate my 40th year with the company. So excited to be here and talk with all of you today.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. And let's pass it over to Jessica next.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa. And hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Jones, and I am DEI Business Partner over Associate Engagement and what we call our GEICO Cares campaign. So I have the pleasure of working with fantastic folks like these women on the call, but also Lisa specifically in her co-chair role over our GROW ERG. And we do have a total of 8 ERGs within the organization. I think I might be the newbie to the group officially. I just made my 7-month mark here with GEICO, but of course, well over 16 years within various spaces, including DEI, inclusion and belonging, communications, and then also corporate events and planning. So very excited to be here with you all and having some great discussion with this fantastic panel.
Thanks, Jess. All right. And lastly, but certainly not least, let's pass it over to Ashley.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Welk. I am a director of first-party medical claims. Just like Taylor, my team is kind of all over the country, spread out numerous different locations. I've been with GEICO for about 13 years, and prior to that, served in the Army for 12. So between all of that, I have about 17 years of leadership experience. Super excited to spend the afternoon with you all and looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Ashley. And thank you for your service. And thank you all for the introductions. We have prepared a series of questions for you all today, and we would love to just jump right into the conversation. So let's do it. The first question we have is for Jessica. Jessica, what are 2 things that you do each day to help you prepare for the workday?
Yeah. Lisa, that's a great one for me because I really have actually prioritized my kind of schedule, if you will, specifically for my personal life. And so I have the luxury, some would call, and some would call inconvenience, but I'll take it for what it is. I have about an hour drive into the office. And so with that time, I've been very intentional to set aside just time to listen to podcasts, right, in the morning and kind of reset my day, really have some kind of thoughtful interaction. So whether it's, specific to what I work in my field, or even just wanting to learn something different, about the world itself, the podcast kind of time has really become Jessica's time. And I really have prioritized that. And then secondly, when we're thinking about our day, I've realized, over the years, I truly, truly am my best self when I am as prepared as possible, right? And so with that preparation comes more preparation and timing and planning, et cetera. So when I really do take a moment just to kind of, before I even do anything within the day, take a moment, understand what I want to get accomplished throughout the day, understand what's expected of me, et cetera. Those things really have helped to keep me grounded. And I would say from a prioritization perspective, I've really started to see a change in that over the last 5 years, making that kind of my first step, if you will. So coffee, of course, is a given. It has to happen. So that's just in my veins. But those intentional pieces have been super helpful for me.
I love that. And I'm definitely joined the podcast game a little bit too late. So I would love to get some recommendations from you.
Got you covered.
Oh, all right. Ashley, I would love to hear your answer to this next question. What key skills or mindsets do you think have helped you navigate the challenges that you've faced in your career?
Absolutely, Lisa. So I would say whenever you're thinking of skills, one of the biggest ones for me and me personally is emotional intelligence. Women in the workplace, sometimes we can be known to have a lot of emotion. I personally am a very, very empathetic person. So really just finding that balance and managing the emotions to help me in that effective leadership. It's helped through conflict resolution, relationship building, and just bringing in that same level of passion, but also making sure that I'm not letting my emotions take the best of me. Also being in a leadership position, there are some times that we have to make tough decisions, and really balancing out the empathetic side but also the business side. That's something I feel that I've come a long way in and has really helped me develop. Another one would be resilience, just really that ability to bounce back from any setbacks or navigate change. Resiliency is something that I've grown a lot in as well. I will say that coming into working at GEICO, I was a perfectionist and really wanted to be the absolute best. And I still want to be the absolute best, but I've grown a lot in the ability to take feedback and make sure that I'm looking to continue to grow, which really feeds over into the mindsets. I would say a growth mindset is key to being successful, viewing challenges and feedback as an opportunity to grow instead of just seeing obstacles or letting it get the best of you. And then one other mindset I would say is just ownership. I think anybody, well, I will confidently say anybody that works with me knows that I will own my results. I'll celebrate success with my team, but also I'll really own those setbacks. And I would say that has really helped me build just credibility and trust. And it also helps to find the true opportunity. So if you're really owning those results and really bringing together your team and understanding, what went wrong, then you can really push forward. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley. I really love that answer to the question for sure, especially about the mindsets and how you handle criticism. I would like to piggyback a little bit off of that. Karen, how do you handle criticism or setbacks while also, trying to stay motivated in your career as well?
Great question, and happy to share. And it will piggyback off of some of what Ashley already shared. So I look at criticisms and setbacks as a coaching and a learning opportunity, not as a failure. And that can be really hard to do. I've been in leadership for more than 3 decades, and really early in my career, I wasn't really good at handling it. I really wore my feelings on my sleeves, and I really had to learn how do I put this in the proper perspective. So for me, I really worked on, okay, let's process my feelings. I would spend time by myself working through what my feelings were, whether I was frustrated, I was disappointed, I was mad, any other emotion I was having at the time. I allowed myself that time to work through that. emotional feeling of frustration or anger. And then basically after that, okay, now let's put in a proper perspective. Let me reset myself. It's not a personal attack. There's feedback in there. What is the feedback? What caused the setback? And what can I learn from it? Do I need to be more prepared? Do I need to be better at communicating? Should I have communicated the message more clearly or in a different manner for that audience? And then just remember, criticism is just a form of feedback and coaching. And it's easier said than done at times, but we all need feedback to help us grow and help us stretch ourselves. So really, the biggest lesson here is don't dwell on it. Take the lesson. There's some kernels of truth in there. As a famous mentor of mine had once told me, even if you don't agree with everything, there are some kernels of truth in there. Take those lessons and take what you find in there and learn how to use that to strengthen yourself and help move yourself forward. Don't dwell on the negative, move forward and do something different with it.
Wow, I really love that, Karen. Just really taking the information and boiling it down to what actually is being said and removing the emotion from it. It's a hard task to do, but it really has to be done when you're in a leadership position. So I empathize with you on that for sure. Next question I have is for Taylor. Taylor, I would love to hear your perspective on this. What do you think is one mistake that you made early on in your career that then became a valuable lesson?
Yeah, I would say I learned this mistake fast and I learned it the hard way. So when I first stepped into my first leadership role in supervision, it was with a group of associates that I had worked alongside. We had trained together, many of us had worked together, and we had a great supervisor, and I really looked up to him. And so I thought, okay, in stepping into this role, I need to be like him. I need to be him. The only problem was we were nothing alike. So in trying to be this person, I wasn't myself. And I mean, my team knew that. I knew that. And it just didn't come across well. We weren't driving results. We weren't really gelling together because I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't. And so, in knowing that they knew me, we had worked together, I probably did one of the scariest things for the first time I had done. And I asked them a couple months in, how is this going? What are your thoughts? How do you feel? What feedback do you have for me? A question that probably many people don't want the answer to, and you kind of like flinch a little bit, but needed to happen. So I got a lot of really good, really honest feedback. And the thing that I realized is they were supportive of me being myself. They enjoyed working with that person. They trusted that person to lead them and to lead that team. And so I think that also helped give me the confidence to step into that role and step into it as myself, into my own. And so that's something that I've definitely tried to employ as I go into all the different positions that I've had in leadership, is knowing that I earned this. I'm here for a reason. And it's because I am who I am, and nobody else can be that person. And I need to accept that that'll make the team successful, and just roll with it. And it has been a very fun ride ever since then. But dang, did it smack me in the face in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I had a very similar experience when I first became a leader. I had all kinds of feelings about, not feeling like I had earned that role and what were my colleagues going to think about me and all that. And it's hard to frame it that way in your mind and just say, you know what, I really need feedback at this point to try to move forward and make sure that you're being the most effective leader that you possibly can be. Thank you for that. Okay, Jessica, next question is for you. How can someone who just entered the job force build a strong professional network and mentorship?
No, I love that one. And I actually think I'm going to tackle it in a few ways, Lisa, if that's okay. So just kind of
Absolutely.
looking at that question in previous lives and world, right? Kind of in that space, I started off in early career development. And so this was a conversation that would happen all the time, right? So I kind of have some thought there, but I will also give some perspective as someone who had been with an organization nearly 7 years and starting over right here with GEICO and being here for 7 months. And I really realized that there was a true intersectionality between the kind of detail and recommendations I was sharing for early career that really seeped into this space of me starting in a new role with a new organization. Because number one, you have to show yourself this same level of grace, right? Oftentimes, I think when we're wrapping up in school and good night, I swear it's been so long ago. I'm going to try to remember when I was back in school. But you know, you do all the work, you're in your classes and you have your degree and you have the conversations and internships, et cetera, and you're ready just to get out into the workforce, right? And kind of implement what you've been learning within school. And oftentimes when you come into this new space, you have to take a moment to assess, right? And understand where you're coming into, understand if you're coming outside of a program. So if you're coming to an organization where you didn't have an internship previously, right? And you really are starting from scratch within this place, it's going to be important for you to really heighten in on those observation skills and starting to identify those leaders that you want to emulate. And Taylor, I heard you loud and clear when you mentioned that too, because you hear that and you're saying, well, hey, I want to lead like you, but you don't want to ever forget that authentic approach that makes you uniquely you, right? So even in Taylor's example, although she was able to see those characteristics, right? Her teams clearly said, Taylor, we want you to show up how you show up, and you're able, we'll lead, you know, after that. So I think for anyone who's kind of wanting to grow in that space, who do they connect in with, et cetera, begin having some conversations with folks, right? Put yourself out there, be intentional with every single touch point that you have. So, you know, you hear it all the time, having your elevator pitch. You hear it all the time if you're at the water cooler. Those things are so real and so valuable. I can't tell you how many times a simple conversation of saying, oh, I have interest in X, Y, and Z, or oh, I've done this in previous roles before, sparked, right? It stuck with someone. And it stuck with someone who had influence. And I think that would be my next thing. So being intentional about your conversation, but also identifying who are those key leaders in your space that have influence. Once again, from my personal experience, there have been countless rooms I never even touched, right? But I know that there were folks there, advocates, champions, who identified Jessica, who knew what I did and also had the understanding of what I desired. And that's the biggest thing. When I had my best mentorship experience, they were very clear to say, Jess, what do you want to do? Right? So any good mentor is going to ask you that question because they don't want to, number one, speak on your behalf and lead you right when you really want to go left. But then also, how can I help you succeed when I don't know what success looks like? And so that's the intentional thing. So even if it's a small little nugget, and even if you're saying to yourself, I'm really not sure, I honestly even know what I don't want to do, that can also help you within those spaces, right? So being very intentional about looking for what you're wanting, identifying those key leaders who make influence, but also being intentional about what you desire. And then Lisa, lastly, I would share with everyone here is also allowing your work product to speak for yourself, right? Folks and personalities, those are the variables. People might love you, may not like you to have coffee, and that's okay. But if they look at your work product and they say, okay, if Lisa's name is on this, I know it's going to be stellar. That's half the battle. So I would definitely be intentional about those key pieces when you're coming into a new workforce and really wanting to build that network and that mentorship opportunity.
I really love that, Jess. You know, I am going to share a very quick story about myself. My very first job in the law, I got because I was very friendly to everyone around me. And I just happened to be talking to a random person in the library one day, swapping tomato sauce recipes. And he wound up being a judge that later gave me a job later on in my career. So it all, you know, just I think the biggest piece of that is really just being kind, leading with kindness, being friendly to everyone you interact with, because you just don't know where you're, you know, who's going to get you into that room that you may eventually need to get into. Thank you so much for all that insight. And in that same vein, Karen, how do you give back to other women and support their career journeys with all of the experience you've had over the years?
Thanks for that question, Lisa. First of all, when my time to retire at GEICO, which won't be for a while, but when I do retire from GEICO, I always talk about, I want my brand to be really someone who has invested in others and has mentored people along their journey and their career and helped them achieve their goals. That's really what I want it to be about. We all work hard. We all know that it's important for us to deliver performance results, but for me, investing in other people is like my priority. That's helping them get where they need, and it makes all of our teams stronger. So that's what I want my brand to be. But so with seeing that, I would say primarily through mentorship, right? And I think the important part is picking the right mentor, picking someone where you know you can trust them and you have a safe space. You want to provide that for people where they have a safe space. They can share what their struggles are. And we owe it to them to be very honest, honest with them about these are the things that you see. These are the things that they could work on. Because it's tough. You trust someone, you're like, I'm in a safe space. But if someone's not really being honest with you and really helping you understand where your opportunities lie, then that mentorship is not as good or as strong as it could be, right? Our job is to help guide them to be stronger, more effective leaders. And then I'm really fortunate. I've had an opportunity to mentor a lot of people over 3 decades in leadership. I've had an opportunity to develop a lot and mentor a lot of women in our company. And I'm super proud to say that I have some of my peers I've mentored along the way. And even someone I mentored is now, has been promoted to a head. So she's even a higher rank than I am in the company, and so proud of her and so proud of being able to mentor. One of the other ways that I give back is I also work with young women to help them build their skills and help them be successful leaders in the future. I'm the president of a nonprofit organization called Counsel for Youth Empowerment. It is a pageant system. We call it one night of beauty and then a whole year of service. And basically, we provide the opportunities for them to speak with local government leaders, give presentations on volunteerism, let them mentor other young women so they really get to learn and develop their public speaking skills and leadership skills while they have that whole year of experience. They're working in serving their community and local charities, and they really gain those amazing leadership skills. So that's just another way that I give back and help women in their career journeys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of that. And thank you so much for giving back to the communities as frequently as you do. Taylor, I think we've all experienced this at some point, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on, but what advice would you give to women who are facing imposter syndrome?
Well, I think the first step is it's real. I've encountered so many women in my work, whether they be on my team, peers, and I think we all feel this at some point and we're afraid to admit it. And once you talk to the first person and they say, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me, it's a real thing. And it's interesting, I've sought out female leaders on my team that are looking to grow and they're looking to go into other positions, and they'll say, well, but I don't have the experience for this, or I don't have the experience for this. And I always say, okay, well, what do you think somebody in that job needs to be successful? And so many times they're not quoting what's on that job description. They're quoting a skill set they have and that they are absolutely great at. So I think also having the confidence to say, one, this exists. I recognize this within myself too, but I'm also not alone. And just know you are in your role, or you're searching for that next role for a reason, because you are qualified to do it. I always joke, I once had a job managing a call center here at GEICO, and when I left the position, I'd never worked in that department, but they said, you know what, I think you could be a good fit because of these certain skills that you have. And turns out they were right. When I left the job, they posted for my replacement, and I met none of the basic qualifications, by the way. And so I always tease the hiring manager. I was like, whoa, I guess you really wanted to get rid of me. But the whole thing was I had gone on from that role, and I had gone on from that role being successful and launching into something else. But just because I didn't meet these 10 things on paper didn't mean that I didn't have the skill sets or qualifications to lead that team. And I always say, and this is something I didn't have the confidence to say when I was first interviewing for jobs. And maybe it's because I grew up in a male-dominated world. Sometimes I would wonder if people would question why I was there. And I've now gotten to the point in my life, in my career, where I say, if anybody asks me, why do you think you're qualified to do it? And I say, some people have doubted me. Some people have wondered if I were qualified for this role or that role. And I have quickly shown them that not only do I have the skills to do it, I have the skills to do it well. And it only takes about a month or so for them to figure that out. So I think also too, just knowing you might think that others will doubt you and you have absolutely nothing to prove to those individuals. The only thing you have is to prove to yourself that you are absolutely capable of doing it. Now, granted, that's taken me 17 years, but it's real. There are many conversations where it's just been like, girl, I know. And then we have an open conversation about it. So find that person you can talk to and find that person that knows all of the great things about you and I'm sure many of your friends can list them out and help you gain the confidence to just say, yeah, not only can I do this, I'm going to do it and I am absolutely going to rock it. So I think
I really love that, Taylor. Thank you so much. I just want to open it up to the floor and see if anybody else wants to chime in on this, because I feel like this is a really important topic that, you know, everybody handles differently depending on what your own personality is like. Some of us have different levels of confidence than others. So would love for someone else to jump in, anybody that wants to.
Yeah, I would really say, I think Taylor hit it spot on, but the confidence in yourself is the huge, huge part of that. Each of you here with us today are in the society for a reason, right? And each of us here on the stage are here for a reason. And I think that we can all be our biggest critics and we can question that. And sometimes you really do have to have that pep talk with yourself and just remind yourself of your accomplishments and also those that are there with you. You know, for me, I'm a mom. I have my kids that are my biggest supporters. I have all of my family that are my biggest supporters, but I also have those people that I've worked throughout my career with that would come and, you know, be my cheerleader every day. And so I think, you know, you really have to make sure that you have that confidence in yourself, but also if you start to doubt yourself, reach out to all of those supporters and talk that through, and they're going to help you push forward.
That, Ashley, thank you so much for that additional insight on that question. Anybody else want to jump in, or I'll move on to the next one?
No, Lisa, I actually would love to. And I think it's even more, important too for this audience, because I know we have a mixture. And I think Jen shared with us, we had like over 80 registrants and folks might be doing watch parties, which is super exciting too. And I think back to that point of being early in your career and identifying, well, what does this look like? Taylor, once again, spot on. As I heard your story, I was like, echoed the same sentiments over here. And especially starting my career so young and really going directly into my field with previous internships, there were often times where I truly felt like my sole purpose was to go in the corner, write notes, right? And that was it. And I truly had one of my mentors who was so intentional. She saw me, she saw Jessica, right? She saw a version of myself that I didn't even see and that I hadn't even quite, kind of bought into. And Karen, I see you nodding your head. I feel like you've probably seen this too in so many people. Folks see what you can do and what you bring to the table before we do oftentimes. And so I think Taylor, just how you noted that folks saw that you had certain characteristics. Karen, I'm sure in your mentorship, you've been able to do the same. And Ashley, I can't see you on my screen right now, but I'm sure you're echoing the same. It really does take that moment of self-reflection and to also notate this. And this goes back to the preparation. Do what you need to do to feel comfortable and confident, right? To walk in that room and do the things. So whether it's a pep talk in the car, whether it's listening to a song or, kind of doing those things or being intentional to get that feedback from those who you truly respect their thoughts and opinions, you have been invited to the table for a reason. You belong and you have a voice. And every single time you doubt that, remind yourself, because you have to advocate for yourself as well. So I definitely had to kind of go through that throughout my career tenure as well.
Sure. Yeah, Jess, and kind of in that vein, and I know we said we probably weren't going to have time to answer questions from the chat, but I'm going to throw this one out there. I would love to know from anybody, how do you handle pressure on a day-to-day basis with work? What helps you? What guides you through it all?
I can take that one. So I do it a couple of different ways. One is just knowing that, pressure is going to come. It's going to be there every day. So sometimes what I do is it's so easy to get really riled up, to get really into that pressure at the moment. But if you just take a step back for a moment and think through things. It's funny, when COVID first hit, when I couldn't solve a problem, I'd go out for a 10-minute run. It would completely clear my mind because I stepped away for 10 minutes. I would come back and I would have solved that problem. If I sat in the same spot, I probably would have not had the same outcome. But sometimes just freeing your mind for the moment and allowing yourself the space to do that is really helpful. I think for me too, understanding that you can control what you can control and listing that out. Okay, what can I control? This is what I'm going to do. What is out of my control? Okay, how am I going to mitigate that? And how am I going to handle that? I think that helps to put my mind into perspective of how I need to approach how to move forward. I organize the living heck out of everything. It probably drives my husband nuts, but for me, that's controlling the chaos of the world. Outside of work, am still like a wife, a mother. We run the household. There's so much around me that I can do to set myself up. So when those moments come, I also have a safe space to step away to and think, how am I going to handle this problem? But I think there are so many different ways that we can handle it. But I think more than anything, we just need to give ourselves the grace to take a breath. And I think so often people forget to do that.
Yeah, and I would say breaking it up too. I think sometimes we can be very overwhelmed with, maybe you have a very big project or you have a list of different things that you need to complete. Really understanding what is it that I absolutely have to accomplish today and not looking at your whole entire laundry list of items that you're trying to accomplish. That way, when you leave today, okay, I did the absolute most important items. And then tomorrow I'm going to bite off another piece of that. That for me is definitely a big piece that helps me from getting very, very overwhelmed.
I would say I do something similar to what Ashley and Taylor are talking about. On my phone, I have like a focus app. It plays this background music, which may sound kind of crazy. You're like, how can you concentrate when there's music? But it's for studying, concentration, get my mind in the right place. Like Taylor, for me, my email has to be under control. Get my email under control first. Then I've got to work on something. And like Ashley said, I break it up into bite-sized pieces. What piece can I bite off right now? I'm going to spend 30 minutes with my focus background music on, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes very intentional on this particular thing that I need to get done or work on. Because we put so much pressure on ourselves, sometimes you almost get to the point where you incapacitate yourself and you make it even worse. You're like, all right, I've spent 2 hours. I can't focus properly on this. I've spent 2 hours. I've rewritten the same sentence 4 times and I've absolutely gotten nothing done. You've got to clear your mind. You've got to get your mind in the right space and then figure out what works best for you, whether it's Taylor's 10-minute run, it's Ashley, let me clear. I'm going to do these things and be intentional. I get these things done today. Or for Karen, it's like, I'm going to spend a 30 or 45-minute block. I've got my focus meditation music playing on my phone and I'm going to get those things done and I'm going to focus properly. Because we do have a lot of pressure. We've got deadlines. We've got pressures outside of work, like Taylor and Ashley both mentioned. You got working moms. We've got a lot going on in our lives. And it's just, prioritizing and figuring out how to carve that out and make it so where it's not feeling so overwhelming.
Oh, I really love all of these suggestions. I'm going to add a tidbit of my own too, for my experience. I create fake deadlines for myself. I feel like I'm giving a confessional. I create fake deadlines for myself for every task that I do. So if something is due on the 30th, it's due on the 25th in my mind, so that I'm building in a buffer for catastrophe in case that happens. And I have found that that has allowed me to obviously drive results, but also drive results ahead of deadlines most of the time, if not always. And really, truly just give that ability to release some pressure, because I know that if I've marked something with a deadline, I still have a 5-day buffer if something else has to take priority in that moment. Just something that I've learned over the years that really has truly helped me succeed in my career. And I tell literally everyone I know that this is the best way to practice law, to manage a team, really just be as prepared as possible, but also prepare for the possibility that things might not always go exactly how you had planned them out. And I really appreciate all the other insights that the rest of the panelists have given here. Karen, I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Sorry about that. Karen, I would love to hear your thoughts about this one. I would love to hear how you advocate for yourself in male-dominated spaces.
It's a great question. And Taylor and I both work in a male-dominated space right now. And it's not the first time. And throughout my career, I remember when I was a director for auto sales, we had 10 directors in the company, and I was the only female director out of 10. So I've worked in a male-dominated space on several occasions. But what I would say is, Jess said it really well. And I wrote this down as soon as she said it. We talk about performance results, right? I think the most important thing when you're working in a male-dominated space, this is great, advice for anything that we're doing, is you have to be outstanding at your job. Hone your craft, demonstrate your ability to drive results and performance, track those. Those are your accomplishments, and those are part of your resume. It's the resume within your own company for the next job. But be really great at your current job. Just be the expert, be great at it, deliver the performance results. And Jess, when you talk about, it's great if you have outgoing personality and you're super friendly, but you need to drive performance. And I have an old boss, we used to call it, is it style over substance? Because you can talk, you can be an excellent communicator, and you can say all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, is it style over substance? Are you able to deliver as a leader and for your organization? So I think that's the most important thing when we're working in a male-dominated space. And then, for me also is really being confident and being assertive. And I think people think, oh, being assertive, what does that mean? It means I'm able to speak up in meetings. I'm able to give my opinion. I don't speak just to speak. I speak when it's necessary, or I have some input, and really stamp out self-doubt. Don't be doubtful. You know your job, you know your craft. Be willing to put yourself out there and be confident, and don't let anything, give you that little bit of doubt. Have a mentor, have a great mentor. And build relationships and allies. You have a mentor, but you also have a group of it could be other women and even other men. It's great to have a great group of people who can be your allies, and people who you build relationships with, even outside of your own department, so that you can also help lean on those people. And Taylor said it really well earlier, be yourself. Don't try to imitate other people. Don't try to be like someone, be yourself. I would say the strongest group of leaders are the group of leaders that are all very different, because you have different perspectives, you have different opinions, and there's lots of different ways to approach problems. And you need all of that group think for people to come in with different mindsets and different ideas and different thoughts, that whole group think to come in to solve problems and really come up with what's the best way to approach something, or what's the best way to solve a problem or drive a performance result. So be yourself, be confident, be a lifetime learner. I think you've heard that from a few of us now. I always say, I've never arrived. I've never mastered my job. I'm never going to master my job. There's always more to do. I don't focus on what the next job is. I focus on continuing every day to come in and work hard and continue to be the best I can be at my job, but I've never arrived. And we always say, right, the score takes care of itself. You do all the things that you need to be doing to hone your craft, to continue to learn, to continue to stretch yourself, and you're going to have great results. You're going to be very competent in your job. Don't focus on the next job. The score is going to take care of itself. So that's really what I try to focus on working in male-dominated space.
Does anybody want to add anything to that piece? I know, Taylor, you also work in a pretty male-dominated space as well.
I do. It's been probably 15 or 16 years of my life. And it's been a fun 15 or 16 years. I think everything Karen just said is perfect. I would say too, the more that I've grown in my leadership role, the more that I've realized I'm here, but it doesn't have to be male dominated forever. And I think about the first time I walked into a shop 16 years ago, people would continuously ask me, even if I grew my management career, I was a supervisor, I was a manager, it never stopped being asked if that person that I was with was training me. And they would always smirk and kind of laugh a little bit and say, no, she's my boss. So I think part of it too is just understanding they would never say anything like that to me. They would also never stand for anybody saying things like that to me. So I think part of it too is being a woman in a male-dominated field. I want to take other women along with me. I want to support them. Karen talked about allies, and they can be both male or female, but let's also help make sure that it doesn't stay male dominated forever, that you help to grow and mentor and empower those women alongside you. I have a shirt. People in my neighborhood probably are like, oh, there's that lady again, but it says empowered women, empower women. And that's what I like walk around my neighborhood wearing because I truly believe it. I think things need to change, but never doubt yourself that you can be a big piece of that. And so I'm always looking around trying to think, how do we change these? How do we support those around us? How do we make sure that this male ally next to me feels the same way and is also supporting people the way that I want to support people? Because I can't remember exactly what she said, but people asked Sandra Day O'Connor, right, about being on the court and whether it was odd to see and she was excited to see a woman. She's like, or how many women is too many? And she was like, 9. And that still won't be. So I think just understanding too and being confident that you're here for a reason. Like I said, you're here to succeed, and don't forget to bring others along with you. I think that's a big piece of it, and people see that.
I love that. Thank you so much to everyone for all of your very thorough and heartfelt responses. I can really tell that everybody's digging deep to make sure that we're giving the members here a really well-rounded experience. But we have come to our final question. So as the final question, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this one. And the question is, what is one piece of advice you wish you had received when you were first starting out? Let's start with Jessica.
That's a great one. And also just wanted to say thank you for everyone and their feedback. This has been fantastic being a part of this discussion with you all. I typically am a yes and girl, so I may give you 2 here. I've been kind of noodling on these ones. So the number one thing, and this has kind of become my personal career motto, that if I had have grasped it earlier, I just am positive that there would have been even more change, right, that I would have experienced within this space, and maybe not as much transition as I'd had to go to in the very beginning. But simply put, own your career. I think oftentimes, no matter what the situation, I don't even want to put it in a box, but oftentimes we either feel as if certain things will just come our way, or we have to just kind of be prepared for whatever is set to come next, right? And what I've learned in my career is that you have to identify not just where you are, but where you want to go. And there are multiple ways to get there. Even with myself personally and looking at career, you can have it all. And I think I thought that you had to not just make the sacrifices, because sacrifice comes, right, depending upon how you look at it. But when you're intentional and you really set some plans for yourselves, the sky really is the limit for us, right? And we don't have to find ourselves in a situation where it's either or, it's yes and. And I think if I really had have grasped that earlier in my career, coming right out of school, earning my degree, going right into my functional areas, I was so career driven that I kind of forgot some of the things that made Jessica happy. And I thought in order to gain respect in my career, I had to show up in a way that was inauthentic to who I was. And as I have become more confident and comfortable in simply being Jessica, and once again, going back to what Karen shared with me in conversation, I'm confident in my work product, right? I'm confident in my work product. I'm confident that I can show you the work that can be done. Now I can take that level of pressure off as showing up as someone I'm not. And then now I can give you my true best self. And that was something that I truly had to fight for very, very early in my career, and continue to stand strong in that. And I would give that to any type of conversation, with folks coming into their career. But own that space, own what works for you. Vocalize, but I also will share this as well. give folks the opportunity to correct things. I am a big goals person. I am a big performance person, but I truly, truly have difficulty with not being provided or not providing the opportunity for someone to course correct, right? And so when I share with you, when I'm clear with you on what expectations are, where I want to be and go and grow to, and I still can't get that, then now I can sleep at night, right? Like I'm giving you the opportunity to show me who you are, fix some of those cards that weren't so great. And if that hand is still the same, now I know what I can do moving forward. But those, good night. I was kind of just thinking about that. I was like, if I had have grasped that earlier of owning my career and honestly giving, being clear to communicate what I need and giving folks the opportunity to make those edits, it would have saved me some heartache, right? But I'm here now, still smiling.
Still
But
smiling.
I'll take those
Exactly.
too.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jess. Ashley?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm going to give a couple pieces of advice, but I'm going to tie it together. So it's not necessarily two. I would say the biggest thing is get uncomfortable. Like Jess said, you need to know what path you would like to go, but there's going to be so many different doors along the way, and each of those could get you there even sooner. But definitely get uncomfortable. One of the biggest things that I did early on in my career as an examiner with GEICO, there was a certain performance metric that I wasn't necessarily the best in. And when I became a leader, I took on a champion role to drive that performance result for the entire department. And that was a huge challenge for me because I wasn't very good at doing it as an examiner. So how was I going to teach everybody else to do it? But it really forced me into understanding all of the different components that went into that, teaching other people to be better than I even was. And doing that really helped me excel to the next position. There was also parts in my career as an early leader where I actually had mentors that, kind of just told me, hey, you should go do this. And I was very hesitant because that was definitely not in my strengths. That was one of my big opportunities. And, them forcing me into it. I specifically remember a manager I had at one point. He said, I know that this is going to be hard and I know that it might get a little overwhelming, but I promise you'll thank me. And I got promoted 6 months later and said, absolutely, thank you so much. So, like I said earlier, understand the team that you have around you and take that advice and really just make yourself uncomfortable and take on those challenges. The other piece of that, though, is also set boundaries. Make sure that be the first to volunteer, but don't take on so much on your plate that you're going to overwhelm yourself. I would say that we're in a very good position now where we are starting, we have more candid conversations about mental health. And that is absolutely so important. That's the most important thing that you can do is take care of yourself, because a lot of us talked about we have families at home and different things like that. And we're balancing that family, we're balancing our career. You're not going to be good at any of that if you're so overwhelmed that you're not taking care of yourself first. So that's really the most important advice I could give anybody. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Karen?
Thank you, Lisa. So I have like three things. We're like, oh, we go from 1 to 2 to 3. And these are pretty specific is what I would say is every time I've entered a new job, even if it was a lateral position as a director to a different director position, every time I would enter a new position, the first 6 months, I felt very overwhelmed. And Ashley talked a little bit about this. I'd feel very overwhelmed and thinking to myself, I don't know if I can do this job. Start to get a little bit of that self-doubt creeping in. And it's really about getting to the point, like Ashley said, being uncomfortable. You're learning something new, you're doing something new, just know. And I give this advice when I mentor people. When you get to your next job, you're going to feel overwhelmed. The first 6 months, you're going to feel like, I'm not sure I can do this. And I assure you, you can. It just takes time to learn what you're doing. Leadership principles are all the same, regardless of who you're leading. It's just the work looks a little bit different. So you have to learn, get in and learn and hone that craft, and you will. But the first 6 months for me in every new job feels overwhelming. Even the position that I'm in now with Taylor, I've been in this position for 2.5 years. The first 6 months, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I absolutely love it because I'm stretching, growing, learning, and my brain is like, this is amazing. I'm doing something totally foreign and different, and I'm excited about it. So early on, it's okay. And a little bit of that imposter syndrome that Taylor was talking about, that's pretty normal. So give yourself the grace and know you're going to feel like that, but you will master it. Just give yourself the time. The other piece, because I did talk about criticism and setbacks. So early in my career, that was really hard for me because in my mind, a criticism or a setback meant that I was a failure. I wasn't meeting someone's expectations. I didn't do something right. I wasn't perfect, and I wasn't good at my job because of that. I had to learn very early on, none of those things are true. You have to learn, like I said, you have to learn how to go through the process, and you have to learn, how do I take this feedback, what I perceive as a criticism or a setback, how do I take that and make myself better? Very early on, like I said, I wore my feelings on my sleeve. So I had to learn that really early on. And then the other piece is we have a lot of change in our lives, in our careers, in the companies we work for. Change is constant, right? We say the one thing that's constant is change. And the advice I would give is if there's a change that's coming to the department and the area that you're responsible for, and you feel unsure about it, the best thing you can do is really get involved in that change so that you understand it, so that you can be a part of that change. It really helps change your perspective in your mind. Instead of feeling resistant to change, it helps you be part of that change so that you can be involved in it. Not just say, I'm going to be involved so I can accept it. I'm going to be involved so I understand it better. And then I can help drive this change forward and why it's going to be good for everyone in the end.
Thank you. And I think those points about change and change management are really very well taken. Change is constant. There's nothing we can do. It's always going to come. So we have to just learn how to best work within the confines of the change. Taylor, I would love to hear your response on this, and then I'll give some closing thoughts.
Sure. It's really hard to follow all that up because that's really good advice that I wish I would have had too. I want to build on the change piece because I think about who I am today versus who I was when I started my career. And I wish somebody would have just told me, it's not going to be what you expect, but it'll probably be better. Somebody told me about parenthood too. 100% agreed. So much better, but still so much crazier. But what I planned for myself when I was 23 years old is so different. I could not have even imagined some of the different courses that I've taken. And I think it would have been really easy to get discouraged or feel beat down when some of these changes happened or things didn't work out the way that I planned them to. When in the end, they've worked out so much better. And I have had so many different experiences that I never planned or expected to have. And I'm so glad I did. And I feel like it's led me to so much more, honestly, happiness and fulfillment in what I do. So that's one of the big pieces. The other thing I would say, we had a couple of hits on it of just, we are people outside of just our career. And the one thing I keep trying to tell myself, and I wish I would have told myself a heck of a lot earlier, or somebody else would have told me, is every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And sometimes that's something else that doesn't suit you, but that no might be something that you really, really want to do, and you might have to delay or do it a different time, and understand that that's okay. And that's what I continuously try to tell myself as I'm balancing things at work, things at home, while still trying to be the best professional I can be in what I do. And I think once I gave myself the ability to do that and understand what I was doing, it's made decision-making a heck of a lot easier. And I think I'm now more effective at making decisions because I don't need to do it all. I can be more deliberate about what I do when I do it and the choices that I make. And I think that's really helped me to prioritize my day-to-day at work, and just really feel like I'm always giving the energy that I can and need to, and never really reaching that point of getting burnout. So I think that's what I would say.
So I have never heard that before, and now I'm going to use it everywhere I go because my brain just exploded. I love it. So the one piece of advice I would give, and then I will do some closing remarks here in my career, is to remember that people in leadership positions are just people, just like you. That just because someone is a senior director or a manager or a CFO or CEO of a company does not put them on a different playing field than you. It goes back to that get uncomfortable piece. If you have questions, you should ask them. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. And remember that at the end of the day, people are just people, and you could walk up to the CEO and have a very nice conversation with them. And also at the same time, professionally, of course, express concerns that you have about something that's going on. That's back to your elevator pitch for when you're, in the room with the people that actually can effectuate change. So I want to thank everybody so much, all of our panelists today, for all of your insightful responses to our audience. I really personally appreciate the opportunity to participate in such an amazing event. And I hope that all of you who attended today are able to take at least one kernel of information away from today's session that you will carry with you throughout your career. There is in the chat as well, in case you missed it, if you're interested in a career at GEICO or learning more about a career at GEICO, please visit our website. It's careers.geico.com. And now I am going to turn it back to Jen. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing ScholarCast. I have a notebook full of notes from you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to all of us. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. I hope you got as much notes as me. And remember, there's a lot to take away today. And if you'd like to rewatch it, I'll be sending a video your way probably by tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.